Good evening. You're watching Neighbor Media tonight. And tonight we have a special guest on our show, Cheryl Brown, who is one of our newest Neighbor Media correspondents. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this show is about Neighbor Media, the citizen journalism program here at Cambridge Community Television. It's a program that trains Cambridge residents to become reporters covering the people, places, issues, and events of their very own neighborhoods. And we'll begin tonight with a look at the latest Facecast at neighbormedia.org. Hello everyone, Frank Morris here with your Facecast and a big announcement from Neighbor Media. Neighbormedia.org has a brand new look, now with more Cambridge news than ever before. In an effort to give Cambridge residents more local news, CCTV relaunched its citizen journalism site this week to give neighbormedia.org a distinct identity, a newsier feel, and a stronger community presence. The new neighbormedia.org will still host content from our amazing team of citizen journalists, volunteer reporters who, in exchange for 2 written stories or 1 video post per month, receive free membership and unlimited free classes at CCTV. But now, neighbormedia.org will also feature Cambridge-centric news and views from guest contributors from around the community, headlines from other Cambridge news outlets, and tweets from the Cambridge Twitter sphere. The new website is a response to the CCTV 2014 Local News and Information Survey, which revealed that 83% of residents would like to receive more Cambridge local news and information. 82% of that group said they would or might like to receive it from CCTV. CCTV's websites, email, and channels are the preferred methods for receiving this news. And the top 4 desired coverage areas are arts and culture, breaking news, events, and politics. The entire survey can be read in its entirety at cctvcambridge.org/Cambridge News Survey. We hope you'll enjoy the new neighbormedia.org, where we've got Cambridge covered. And if you would like to be a Neighbor Media reporter or a guest contributor, please send an email to neighbormedia@cctvcambridge.org, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks for watching this Facecast, and for more Cambridge news you won't find anywhere else, log on to neighbormedia.org. Great, and welcome back. So, as you saw, neighbormedia.org is more robust than ever, more stories about Cambridge than ever before. And if you do want to join the team, it's a volunteer team of citizen journalists. Be in touch with us. But first I want to touch base with Cheryl Brown, who joined Neighbor Media just a couple months ago, right?
Very recently, yes.
All right, great. Thanks for being on the show, Cheryl.
Thank you for having me.
So Cheryl, tell me a little bit. How did you come to Neighbor Media? How did you hear about us? What intrigued you?
Well, I'm new to the Boston area, but I've been a member of Community Access for about 20 years in the Washington, D.C. area because I've always had a passion for community involvement and empowerment of the community. So when I moved to Boston, I sought out community access to see how I could contribute or be a part and promote the idea that this service is available for the public, for the ordinary person.
Okay, for the ordinary person. And that brings me to, you host a show. In fact, if you watch CCTV every Tuesday night, you know that Cheryl has been hosting a show called The Ordinary Show, which comes on at 6 p.m. So you'll want to stay tuned for that because she'll still be on at 6 o'clock this evening. She's got double duty tonight. What is The Ordinary Show about?
Well, The Ordinary Show, it's about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and it's in support of community access television, in that heroes are not necessarily rich and famous. They're not necessarily on television. There's sometimes people that you brush elbows with in your grocery store, your neighbor even, that because of their humility or modesty, you don't hear about the extraordinary things they're doing after hours. They may work a 9-to-5 job, but after hours they do amazing things. So to contrast or counter some of the negativity on television, I decided to produce a show that shows positive in our community, because that's not always at the forefront. So to me, it's a drop in the bucket or drop in the ocean, but it's a part that I could play.
Great. That's just one way that Cheryl's involved here at CCTV, not only hosting the Be Live show, The Ordinary Show, but also participating in Neighbor Media. .org with a written post that she regularly contributes. On the Ordinary Show, tell me a little bit about some of the guests you've brought on so far.
Well, I've had guests that Charlotte and Peter Timon. I met them at Harvard. They lead a discussion group and a racial justice group. And that's where I learned about the new Jim Crow. I had never heard of the new Jim Crow, even though I'm from the South. But as of being involved in that class and learning about inequities of sorts, I was able to get involved through social media and reach out to promote the new Jim Crow, and I even got the support of Huffington Post and Hillary Clinton. So, and as a result, movements grew around the nation of us communicating on social media. Black Lives Matter, Hands Up, just different movements of awareness about inequities and injustice in America. So now you have people of all cultures, all races, coming together to see what we can do about making things a little more equitable.
For those who visit neighbormedia.org, you may have seen Cheryl's article about that as well. And just to explain a little bit more, the new Jim Crow, people probably are thinking, oh, that ended with the Civil Rights Movement.
That's what I thought.
So what is the new Jim Crow?
Well, there's this fantastic person by the name of Michelle Alexander, and also new to me, but she's an attorney, and she wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, because I thought that ended a long time ago. But there are things that happen, like mass incarceration. The numbers are skewed so far one way for African American males who are incarcerated for the same crimes that others commit, but they get longer sentences, and sometimes they get sentences where others don't. So she kind of quantifies the inequities, whereas the regular citizen, we just feel some type of way. We don't know what we're feeling, we just know something doesn't look right. But Michelle Alexander, she quantifies it and makes it user-friendly for the average person. So I think that's the impetus for that helped promote the movement to get attention to places like Ferguson and movements around the country, because she made it user-friendly and understandable.
All right. And the Black Lives Matter campaign, that is something that Cambridge has seen demonstrations of here. At least one of our reporters, Anna White, has done some stories on the Black Lives Matter campaign. So you see these in neighbor media, we have journalists who they care about certain topics, right? And they're getting the word out about it to the public, and that's one of the goals of neighbor media, is to inform and educate and move people into action on matters that are important to us as a community.
I was really surprised at the overwhelming support of Cambridge and people of all races and colors and communities and cultures. I just think it's one race, the human race, but some people race, whatever. But
such a complex thing.
It's a complex topic. But I was just moved and overwhelmed by the support of people of all cultures and colors that came out to support just right. Let's look at doing things a little better in America.
There was one, when you and I first sat down to talk, you talked about you went to an event and you were kind of surprised that young people here knew more about Black culture, right, than where you were from. Is that right?
Exactly.
You want to tell that story?
Yeah, I was surprised that people that are in their 20s, they seem to bring the passion. And I'm not saying that, other generations have not contributed, because, we stand on the shoulders of people before us. But it's good that where one generation leaves off, another picks up to carry on the torch, and that gives you hope for, people carrying on a legacy of a movement. But yeah, even attending some of the organizations that you would think were traditionally African American, they were not. They were majority supported by whites. So I was just surprised at the Cambridge area and at how forward thinking they are.
Definitely.
So that's been at a lot of events that I've attended. I'm just, I would say, pleasantly surprised.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you're from DC. I'm from Arizona, and that's one of the things that I found so unique about Cambridge was this very progressive thought, right?
Yes, very.
People really working together to move the country forward on certain issues, such as race relations, right? For example. You did another story that I thought was really great. It was Mr. Gilmore buys a bank. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Another, just Cambridge attending just the oddest off-skew events. It was the dead of winter, and you know what the winter was like here.
Yeah.
Yikes. And I think it was 0 below something.
Oh, no.
And I said, I'm going out because it was Black History Month, the first day of it, I think, and I'm going to support.
Yep.
So I went out of a sense of duty, and I discovered Mr. Gilmore. You know, he was a quiet man, reserved. But when he got up to talk, I was just taken by his experiences. He had been in the military, gone away to war, and he had experienced that his grandparents were slaves, but his mother was a business owner and taught him to be wise with his money. And he experienced prejudices and, you know, things coming back from the war where people in America didn't value him, where people in France gave him a Medal of Honor. And, you know, that was that era. But he went on to open several businesses here in the Boston area, and he's well known around the area because he turned 90. But he told one story about he got denied for a loan, and the bank turned him down for a loan, and instead of being, woe is me, what can somebody do for me, he got together and purchased a bank, which he became the lender instead of the borrower. But what fascinated me more than anything is that here's this 90-year-old man who had experienced members of his family being a slave and prejudice, but he still had this outstanding smile and exuberance and passion for life. Even at 90, he wasn't bitter.
Yeah, that's one of those success stories.
It was success because he progressed through life and enjoyed each phase of life, and he said he was just grateful.
Right.
And he contributed a lot to chance and circumstance, but he was wise like a fox also.
Yeah, that's one of those American dream sort of stories,
Yeah.
right? You know, pulling yourself up from the bootstraps, even if you didn't have the bootstraps, right?
Right.
You know, just that line about how he remembered walking with his mom, and his mom's
Yes.
talking about the abuses that her parents went through as slaves, you know, and
Right.
to see that he ends up buying a bank, not going to the bank, but he
Buying a bank.
Buying a bank.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great story. And these are the types of stories that, you know, Neighbor Media, we cover so much different stuff, and it's really up to the individual reporter what they cover. But one of the things that I like about it are these stories about these unsung heroes, these people that you're not going to hear about in the mainstream media. You're not going to hear about them or read about them, you know,
Exactly.
in mainstream media. You know, as a former reporter myself, you know, I've seen how newsrooms have downsized, you know, over the years, and the resources have become so limited, and so it's up to, you know, places like Neighbor Media, right? You know, these sort of citizen journalists to fill in those news gaps, right? You're not going to see as many positive stories in the news. You're not going to hear about these ordinary people doing extraordinary things. You're not going to hear about what's going on in your very own neighborhood. And that's why I think Neighbor Media is so important. We really
Exactly.
work to do that. You had a couple other stories that you've written so far for us.
Well, Senator Jalen and her suit.
Right. Oh yeah, that was a
I
nice
was
story.
invited, like you say, these odd, out-of-the-way, quaint invitations that you get in Cambridge that you don't suspect. I was invited to a soup tasting at Senator Jalen's house, and apparently every year she makes like 20 different soups, and she invites neighbors and community to just come in and eat soup. And people bring exotic breads, and sometimes you can bring like drinks, soft drinks or wine or whatever.
Mm.
And neighbors get a chance to talk to each other, but they also get the chance to just talk to her in an informal environment. And I thought that was awesome. She just opens up her house.
Yeah, no, that was a fun story
Yeah.
to read. That what was the name for it? It was
Jalen and her soup, Senator
Yeah,
Jalen and her soups. I
yeah,
believe.
exactly. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a nice story. Yeah, that's really surprising too. A senator opening
Opens up her house
yeah.
to the community,
Yeah,
and they just
exactly.
walk in, and I think it was about 100 or so people there.
Wow.
It was full, and people came in, and
Mm-hmm.
because it was upstairs and downstairs. She
Okay.
opened up her upstairs
Oh,
and downstairs.
wow.
So downstairs was the soups, upstairs was any kind of dessert that you wanted.
Wow.
So
I'm sorry I missed out.
I
on
know.
that.
So that was a great event. I wrote a story. Well, did I write a story about spring break? I had kind of fun with that,
Okay. Uh-huh.
and I was just talking about who is having more fun with spring break, the parent or the children.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think the vote is
yeah.
the children.
Yeah.
But not to panic, because with planning, and age appropriateness, you could find a lot of things to do around the area. And then I had a show to complement the Neighbor Media article last week, and we kind of did a spring break dance.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But just had fun with spring break, getting people in the mood for spring, because we need it here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So you brought in a guest. You said who was your guest last week?
Last week I think we did the spring break show, but then we had a bluegrass band.
Oh yeah, the bluegrass.
Uh-huh.
Yep, that's right.
Mile 12.
Uh-huh.
And they were a group of people in their 20s who graduated from college, and they had met, and one of the group members were from Australia, and college graduates, that got together and formed a folk bluegrass band. And it kind of put me in the frame of mind of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Okay. Yeah.
With George Clooney.
Uh-huh,
You've
yeah,
seen that?
mhm.
I love that Celtic sound,
Yeah.
and they kind of displayed that on my show.
Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
great. Side note, that movie, part of it was shot in Arizona. So yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Yeah, so connection
I've
to
seen
it.
that
Yeah,
like
exactly.
12
That's so
times.
funny,
I
yeah.
know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Cheryl produces some amazing stories, and
Thank
yeah,
you.
really glad that she's part of the team, and that she just jumped in right away and started doing these stories and doing the Be Live show. And you've also attended a couple classes here so far, right?
The Harvard classes.
Yeah, here at CCTV.
Yeah,
right?
amazing. I took a Photoshop class because, you could get so much done yourself. I'm always paying people to dress up make a logo or dress up a logo, but taking a class here, it taught you how to manipulate, photograph, and print. You can make your own logo or intro.
Yeah. And
Saves a lot of money.
that's right. Yeah.
So I'm still learning that. I'm not proficient at it, but I was introduced to it.
Yeah, and one of the perks about being a Neighbor Media reporter, if you live in Cambridge, you have the opportunity to apply as a reporter. But if accepted, you do get free membership here at CCTV. Usually that's $75 a year, and also you get free unlimited classes, which is amazing because we have so many great classes. In fact, we have a whole new lineup of classes that's out now. If you look at cctvcambridge.org/learn, cctvcambridge.org/learn, you'll see the full list of classes. Or drop on by 438 Massachusetts Avenue and pick up a newsletter. You'll see all the new classes there. Cheryl, there was one other area that I want to talk with you. Probably a couple other areas. One was, so last week we had our monthly Neighbor Media meeting, and you sat in on that. You got to meet some of the other reporters there. That was the first monthly meeting that Cheryl got to attend, and pretty diverse group too, right?
Exactly.
These reporters come from every part of Cambridge, and like I said earlier, they've got different topics that they're interested in. And very, in terms of age, I think the youngest was 18 and the oldest is 81.
Okay.
So yeah,
Very
very
diverse.
very diverse
Yeah.
in terms of their interests. And and some use video, some just like to write and post photos. But Cheryl had the opportunity just this past Friday to attend an event, and she filmed some stuff. And what was this event that you?
Yes, it was a hip hop forum, and it was hosted at Harvard University, hosted by Harvard, and the Hutchins Center, and it had a panel of speakers that they had flown in from across the U.S. Some people were from Connecticut, New York, Philadelphia, and Ferguson was one of the places. And also young people, very articulate, very astute and keen to what was going on. And they had someone named Cheryl X, and someone that's popular in the Cambridge area that I just heard about. His name was Tef Poe, but apparently he's in high demand.
Wow. Okay.
But I got a chance to see him, and I could see why, because he was on point with, and he won like awards.
Wow.
But I had never heard of him. I'm learning a lot, being exposed to a lot of different, diverse things being here. A young lady named Nettie and Ashley, one of the young, Netta, she was from Ferguson, and she apparently started out, she showed some footage from Ferguson actual live. So in the meantime, she's acquired like 38,000 followers on Twitter or whatever, because what was happening in the mainstream media, they were reporting one thing, and she was there seeing different things, so she was able to show actual footage of what was actually going on the ground. And I didn't even know we had anybody representing, like an average citizen. So she was there, and she talked about actual footage. And the young lady named Ashley, she had gone to the Geneva Convention.
Wow.
And actually got a chance to talk to the United Nations.
Wow. Yeah.
And these were under 30. These people were under 30 years old. And and the young man, Tef Poe, had just spent time in Palestine. And Cheryl X, he had gone, I'm not sure, Israel or Palestine. But I did not know these people were traveling abroad and internationally to talk about this movement.
That's amazing. It's, when you think about it, how young they are.
I know.
They're really making a difference.
Yeah.
Not only in the communities in which they live, but around the world.
Yes.
So this forum, it was not just hip hop. It was hip hop with a message, right?
Right.
And the influence that hip hop can play in among the masses,
Right.
in making a difference.
Exposing that hip hop is just a means of and just one means of communication, and using their not popularity, fame. No, I'm not sure what the word is. They have exposure to masses of people and using that for greater good.
Exactly, using it as a platform.
So they call it hip hop, but these are people that are famous for one thing, but they're using their fame for to speak on an issue that's important.
Right. Sounds like a lot like Neighbor Media, right? A lot like what Neighbor Media does. In addition to having on, this wonderful team of reporters that includes Cheryl, and we have a whole group of them. In fact, if you check out neighbormedia.org and click on About Us, you'll see our current team. But we're also looking for guest contributors. Now, guest contributors are people that, if they can't meet the commitment of our Neighbor Media correspondents, I should clarify, to be in Neighbor Media, you need to, 1, be a Cambridge resident. I mentioned that before. You need to, 2, produce either 2 written stories or 1 video piece a month. And for as long as you're doing that, you get that free membership, those free privileges. And you go through a trial period to be accepted onto the team. Guest contributors, you don't have to live in Cambridge. Maybe if you don't have that commitment to do those 2 written stories and 1 piece, video piece a month, then maybe you just want to produce something every so often. So long as it's about Cambridge, we welcome it to Neighbor Media. So we're looking for guest contributors as well. If you're interested in either being a reporter or a guest contributor, send me an email, frank@cctvcambridge.org, frank@cctvcambridge.org. All the information is online right now at neighbormedia.org. You can read more about becoming part of the team or being a guest contributor. In the last about minute that we have on the air tonight, I just want to also talk about social media. So Neighbor Media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. These are great ways where if you don't have time or you forget to check neighbormedia.org on a day-to-day basis, if you go on Facebook and follow us, start liking our stories and commenting, you'll be able to get these stories delivered straight in your newsfeed. And of course, we all know people spend time on Facebook every day. So it's just kind of a nice way to be updated on what's happening in your community. So please log on to Facebook, follow us. If you prefer Twitter, do the same. And Instagram, we're only recently started an Instagram account, but it's growing. It's got some terrific stuff on it as well. And Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on. It's great to have not only a great participant in the program, but also an advocate for the community and Neighbor Media and CCTV. So it's really terrific. For everyone watching at home, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Until next Tuesday, we'll see you at neighbormedia.org, and we hope you have a great night. See you. Oh, wait, don't.